Good evening and welcome to the Buck Stops here. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program this evening, the Coast Guard tracks and intercepts a fishing boat from Pakistan. Sailors on the ship reportedly blow up this vessel rather than surrender to the Indian Coast Guard. The government says there were explosives on board. But the bottom line is that the boat is at the bottom of the sea and there is no clarity on the nature of explosives on board. And all this gives Pakistan our grounds for deniability. At the end of the day, there remain question marks on this maritime encounter. The Pak bomb boat for India, which has been caught, was a 2611 type terror operation stopped, or are there indeed question marks at the end of the day on what actually may or may not have been on board? Also on the show, the stereotyping of Muslims as terrorists. How on 3 occasions the police in Gujarat have dressed up men as Muslims in mock terror drills. The big question: stereotyping, terror, mock drills. Is there a bias of the Gujarat police which has now been exposed? Well, these images pretty much sum up the biggest news story of the day. This is what the Coast Guard says is a Pakistani trawler, a Pakistani fishing vessel. It left a jetty not too far from Karachi, was intercepted by the Indian Coast Guard, and eventually, according to the government and the Coast Guard, it blew itself up. Did the terrorists or the people on board, they blew up this vessel because their intent was serious. They were bringing in possibly explosives or weapons or something else. And therefore, this was a good intercept by the Indian Coast Guard. That's what the Indian government has to say. And there was a great deal of excitement at the Defence Ministry this afternoon when there was an uncharacteristically long press note covering every aspect of this operation. How exactly did it start? And by the end of the day, are there still unanswered questions? That's what we're going to be looking at in this program. When it all started with Indian phone intercepts of people in Pakistan reportedly saying that this one boat, right, from this port of Keti Bandar was actually going to travel into India. It had apparently illicit goods on board. It was expensive illicit goods which were being carried on board. The nature of these illicit goods not mentioned anywhere, certainly not broken in terms of news to the media. But for what it's worth, there was illicit goods that are coming into Indian waters, and on the basis of this, our intelligence authorities let the Coast Guard know, let the Marine Police know, and they started this interception exercise. And let's just play out this animation package to give you an idea of just how the actual interception took place. Now, the actual interception took place with this boat actually leaving Keti Bandar. This is the suspect vessel. There were Indian Marine Coast Guard aircraft, Maritime reconnaissance aircraft, Dornier aircraft, which actually circled it, got a precise fix of it, and then as it came into Indian waters, there was a Coast Guard ship which actually went towards it. And what the Coast Guard says is, and the government, that after a period of time, when the Coast Guard ship actually fired some shells to warn it, it tried to avoid the Coast Guard ship, and eventually it got destroyed. They destroyed themselves, the people on board. There were 4 people on board. Apparently, they went into the ship, and after a period of time, they blew up the ship. Now, this all took place in the intervening night between the 31st of December and the 1st of January. Now, in all of this, there are some unanswered questions. This is actually an image of the boat taken from perhaps that Maritime Dornier, and this is after it was blown up. Now, if indeed there were explosives on board, why then does the press note actually say that this ship was burning for several hours? Because it's not a very large vessel at all. It's a relatively small shipping craft. And if there were explosives on board, then the chances are that it would blow up as opposed to burn for as long as it did. Secondly, sources have indicated to us that this vessel was not actually going to make landfall in India. There was a possibility that this would actually transfer whatever there was on board to another vessel. Therefore, what about the India end of this operation? Are there any details of that? No questions on that as well. And finally, this is known to be a smuggling route between Pakistan and India. In the absence of any evidence like weaponry or explosives, does this give Pakistan a deniability option? So there are lots of question marks over there. Are we absolutely certain that this was a boat with terrorists, or was this in fact a boat that had contraband, something illegal, but not necessarily a terrorist operation? It's all up in the air. One way or the other, the interception was a fine operation. It brought together several units. Well, this entire story becomes so important because of 26/11 and what happened over there, and the fact that our maritime security was shown to be in a shambles at that stage. Has anything really improved now? Is this a major intercept of terrorists or some sort of terrorist operation which has been stopped, or was this in fact a fishing craft? And are the terrorist links still somewhat tenuous? Joining us to debate this, A.V. Karnik, former Deputy Director of the Intelligence Bureau, Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, the former Director General of Infantry and a defense analyst now, Lieutenant General Talat Masood, retired, he's the former Defense Secretary of Pakistan, joins us from Islamabad. Aman Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, and with me in the studio, Rear Admiral Raja Menon, former Assistant Chief of Navy Staff Operations. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Admiral Menon, let me come to you first. And if you can just bring up the image of the boat simultaneously burning. It's a small, if you can just bring up that image of that boat, which we'll do that in a second.
I remember it.
Right. Does it strike you that there was a massive explosion on board?
No. That fire is definitely an oil fire.
Right.
There's no question that that's an oil fire. That's not burning explosives. Explosives don't burn like this. If explosives were to go up, they would go up with a white color, white hot. That's the color of explosion.
So when they say that there was a major explosion on board,
that's probably the diesel tank.
It's the diesel tank explosion.
Probably the diesel tank.
And therefore, when there is a press release which says that intercept suspect boat carrying explosives in Arabian Sea, we shouldn't naturally make the inference or draw or infer that it was explosives which blew up.
No, I don't think, well, it may have been carrying explosives, I don't know, but certainly from the fire you can't deduce that it was explosives that was burning. That was an oil fire. No question it's an oil fire. But there are people who would like to think along the same lines as what happened in the past. Like for instance in 92, 93, RDX, 7 tons was landed.
Yes.
All along the Konkan coast. In 26/11, terrorists came across.
Yes.
So immediately they put 2 and 2 together and say terrorists, explosives. I mean, there's no question that this boat was doing something illegal, illicit.
Yes.
No question about that. But 4 people don't make a terrorist strike.
Okay. Aman Sinha of the BJP come in with this. You know, Manohar Parrikar has made a statement, the defense minister, just a little while back. And I find his last statement, it's actually one sentence, I'll read it out. Surprising. He says, the defense ministry statement, the defense minister Shri Parrikar has complimented the Indian Coast Guard and those involved in the operation for intercepting the rogue vessel of the coast of Gujarat in a timely and precise manner, thereby averting a possible danger. Is that all we are talking about? A possible danger, the danger of which we don't exactly know at this stage?
Vishnu, surely our intelligence agencies, our coast guards, indeed they need to be complimented for their swift and potent action in intercepting this rogue vessel and averting a potential danger to the country. And if you see whatever evidence that we already have in public domain, it was clearly defying the instructions given by the Coast Guard. It was running away, trying to escape for more than an hour. Thereafter, it had, some explosive. This is what the press release also says. And, a fishing boat is not going to blow itself up, in this manner. So obviously there was something very suspicious and serious with this boat which compelled them to act in this manner. And it is all a subject matter of investigation. Our, Coast Guard, Navy and other agencies are investigating it. Our vigil in the maritime waters and coastal security is at a much higher level.
Yep.
And this also reflects that our coastal security and our intelligence grid is much stronger than what it was earlier.
General Talat Masood, you heard the BJP spokesperson speaking over there. For us in India, the memory of what happened in 26/11 when there were boats from Pakistan coming into our waters and then infiltrating into Mumbai is very clear. More than 160 people lost their lives on that day. Isn't it a serious matter that there are still boats illegally plying from Pakistan into our waters, possibly boats with terrorists or explosives or illicit goods at the very least on board?
No, I think you are highly exaggerating the event, and I think there is some sort of a paranoia at the moment in India about Pakistan. I don't think Pakistan, is in a position to sort of do what you were thinking. I think it could well be some smugglers if they're, it's quite possible, because smuggling is going on across both India and Pakistan from both sides. So that is nothing so unusual. And sometimes they do, if they did use explosive, firstly, it's not even sure that they ever use the explosives. But if they did, as they do carry a little, some of these smugglers do carry some explosives. It doesn't mean that it was a sort of a terrorist operation. I think at the moment India is too much focused, and there is some sort of a paranoia about Pakistan. And there seems to be some sort of a
may I respond, Vishnu?
A sort of a deliberate effort towards demonizing Pakistan. So I think we have to be very careful. The best thing would have been if the two maritime security agencies should cooperate with each other, should have actually signaled each other.
As you know, sir, from
I
the
mean,
past,
like civilized country.
As you know, sir, from
like
the
civilized
past,
countries.
there has been no.
But the past means.
Sir,
No,
we've had
but the point
2611
here
over
is-
here, sir. There was a boat from Pakistan which
No.
infiltrated our waters. Surely, sir, you don't expect India to believe the Pakistani
respond,
Navy in
Vishnu?
this sort of scenario?
Well, I mean, there have been many incidents from Indian side also, but I'm not going to narrate them. Samjhota Express, the East Pakistan narrative and all that. I mean, we don't want to, repeat all that. What we are saying is, wasn't there a possibility that both the maritime agencies should have cooperated with each other, given a signal to each other?
Sir,
that
I think the
whose
larger
boat
issue
it
over there
let's
is that
get
we are
it.
not in a position, India and Pakistan, to be talking with each other, sir, at this stage because of the border
Yeah,
shelling
that's the whole
that is
problem.
taking place, sir.
Yeah, that,
And India's position on this
that's
is quite
the exactly,
clear, sir.
yeah.
And therefore that's
Enough,
difficult
this
in this
is
way.
exactly
But
the
sir,
point
I
I'm
want to go across
Vishnu,
to General
may I
Shankar
respond?
Prasad,
Can
who
you
has a
allow me
point
to
to make.
respond, Vishnu?
Aman, I'll come to you next. General Shankar Prasad has a point. General Prasad, go ahead.
Vishnu, we are all sitting on television right now. We are not sitting in operational rooms of either the intelligence agencies or the security agencies. We have to base our assessment at this point in time on whatever information is flowing out in the public domain. The first, there are intercepts available to say those people who are in this boat have been paid 5 lakh rupees to their relations.
Yes.
Second, there are indications to say that they were to pick up certain weapons or such warlike materials en route, and which they have done. The third is that when they were challenged, they tried to escape. And it took us about 1 hour to get close enough to them to engage them and to destroy them or whatever has happened. These are factors which we need to consider, whether it is going to be a boat carrying smuggled goods, or whether it's carrying fishermen, or whether it's carrying terrorists. As of now, my view is that they were pretty much certain terrorists. When they were completely surrounded and they had no option but to surrender, they decided to blow themselves up. Now, when anybody blows themselves up, and Admiral Menon would forgive me when I say this, that yes, maybe he's right that the explosion of an explosive would result into a white kind of fire, but this is basically a red looking fire. Now, just on this we cannot base an assessment. I feel when an explosive will go off, certainly it will also hit the fuel, the diesel or the oils, whatever there are in that ship, in that boat, and therefore that will also burn. So whether the explosives are big enough to create a white cloud, or whether it was more of the lubricants and petrol inside it that created this. So we'll have to wait and watch.
Okay, all right, fair enough. General Prasad, I take the point
before
here.
we come to a conclusion.
I take the point
So
here.
I want to conclude by saying
Yep.
that as of now, the evidence shows it was a terrorist-generated incident.
Fair enough. Let me just go across to Mr. Karnik, former Deputy Director of the Intelligence Bureau. The big problem, sir, for India is potential Pakistan deniability. They've already denied it. The fact that we were unable to recover anything from this boat, isn't that the biggest issue over here? Ultimately, there needs to be some sort of proof. There is none.
Yes, that's very true. But whatever proof you may have or you may get even in the future is of no use as far as Pakistan is concerned. They'll deny everything even if you give proof. So that let that be set aside, really speaking. But we have various reasons to suspect that it was a terrorist attack. No smuggler, no fisherman will blow himself up when accosted by the Navy of the other side. They'll get surrender and maybe penalized and go to jail for some time. But this kind of a suicide attempt is only reserved for the terrorists. They will do it. Similarly, we still do not know the intelligence report was initially. Possible that the intelligence did refer to a terrorist attack. We do not know. It hasn't come out yet. But indications are that the behavior of the craft was such that they were avoiding interception by the Navy, by the Coast Guard, and they killed themselves when it was become impossible to
All right.
evade.
So fair enough. Aman,
That indicates some kind of
sir, I just want to go across. We try and fix that line
effort
with you.
to hide
I want to
themselves.
go across to Aman Sinha with this question. You see that there are these unanswered questions. We've listed a few of them. The other unanswered question in this is the potential India side of the operations, because there is an assumption based on what we are hearing today that this vessel was meant to transfer this illicit goods, whether it's people or weaponry or explosives, we don't know, to another craft which would take it to India. We don't have any details of the other side of that operation. Until that actually comes into the public domain, does there still remain some sort of a question mark on what we actually ended up intercepting?
No, Vishnu, our agencies are already investigating this. Intelligence agencies, Coast Guard, Navy, everybody is employed into this. And therefore, let the outcome be there. And I'm sure they will be considering all the aspects. But let me respond to my your panelist from Pakistan.
Yeah.
Pakistan is widely acknowledged as the epicenter of global terrorism, and they have been conducting repeated terror attacks on India. They are financing, planning, and thereafter executing such terror attacks where in large number of thousands and lakhs of innocent Indians are being killed. And still my your panelist from Pakistan has this kind of hypocrisy to say on a public television. What has happened to the past attacker of 26/11, Zakir Rahman Lakwi? He was let off by the Pakistani authorities because nobody appeared to oppose his bail, and thereafter his detention order was also set aside.